2.
Hi everyone, I'm Cindy Rodday and I'm here at Revolutionary Concord to speak about my Northbridge series. This series started a while ago because originally back in 2006 I made a card, I don't know if you can see it, I'll bring it closer, of the Northbridge. This is a digital piece that I did on the computer using Photoshop. And back in 2016 for Christmas I gave Marie one of these cards. And she mentioned shortly after it that she liked the piece and thought maybe we should do a print. If you've been in Revolutionary Concord, you know there's a few artist prints around. So, you know, she mentioned it to me. Obviously, you know, you get a little busy. You don't have the time to do it at that time. And we decide to revisit it later on. And during that time that I wasn't working on it, I was getting prepared as far as doing other Northbridge series, because to get used to a place, to get used to a location, to really understand it and to be able to draw it better, you might do a series of pictures. So I've done, this is a charcoal drawing of the Northbridge, but not close to the bridge. It's more, there's this famous, I think it's famous, tree that everybody notices as they're moving up towards the visitor center at the national park, the Minuteman National Park, and you can just see the Northbridge in the background. So this is a charcoal drawing, and then I did it again as a watercolor. So you can see, you just notice a little hint of the bridge in the background. It was just a way to do the bridge from a different viewpoint that most people aren't used to seeing. And I still experimented with different viewpoints. I did this scene where just the bridge is seen in the corner. Most times when you see the Northbridge, you'll see the whole bridge from, if you're standing in front of it and you've got the British Monument behind you, you'll see the Minuteman statue just over the bridge in the distance. And most people see that view, but I was like, oh, I'll try something different. Go to the other side. You get to see nice reflections and nice trees in the background. So I did that. I did try the typical scene where you have the little Minuteman in the back. So you can see that.
I love your compositions.
Thanks.
Photobomb.
And I continued working on various series of watercolors. So this one, I don't have the Minuteman. It's not a large photo, so sometimes trying to get those small little things, it really can be hard. But I do have the bridge, so this is a watercolor that I did 2 years ago. And last year, there were 2 times I was working on pastels. I've been doing pastels since 2015, and last year at Albright Art we got the UArt paper. So Betsy asked me to do a little quick demonstration how UArt paper works, you know, if people would like it since we started selling it over there. So this one shows the bridge from the vantage point of the boathouse. And when we revisited the idea of doing a print here for Revolutionary Concord, I showed Marie the various compositions I had, and we decided this was the best one because it was a little different from what people are used to seeing. So I tried doing a small one again of that. And this was just, you know, a starter.
Oh, beautiful.
And I realized, one, I had to take a little artistic license to get the Minuteman in there, because when it's springtime, which I was trying to do, you can't see the Minuteman. It's covered up with the trees, the bushes, everything that's overgrowing there. And then when I started doing the Minuteman, it was really hard to do it really small. So what I ended up doing was a larger piece about this size, which is like 8 by 10. And I did the full pastel, which we have the copy over there, and it looks like this. This is the print of the pastel. I was able to get a little bit of the Minuteman, you know, it's still a little hard because it's a small image, but I was able to get him in there, take away from, you know, the bushes and everything, and get the scene. So this is something that most people don't see, that version of the bridge. So, and then I had also tried this pastel that I decided to do plein air.
How are you?
And that piece, I'll bring it out a little. So plein air is when you're outside and painting, you know, on the spot. And the day that I set up, it was a little windy. Not too bad, but I thought, okay, I'll do it. And as I turned around to get some of my stuff, the wind tipped over my palette of pastels.
Oh no.
And it went everywhere.
And what did you do?
Well, I quickly gathered all the pastels as I could. And then I took a shot of what had happened. You know, this isn't the pastels, you know, I picked them up. This is the remnant of the dust right there.
Oh.
So you can see that. So it went everywhere. There were people there that day, but they obviously didn't see that part. I quickly picked it up, and I'm trying to, you know, get away the dust because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And I told people afterwards, and they're like, oh, don't worry about it. You know, it's going to go away once it rains and stuff. I'm like, all right, you know. I kept on checking back each week. It was still there.
Wow.
So this happened June 2nd of last year. And like 2 weeks later, I went back, and there was still dust on the ground.
Wow.
So it didn't go away.
Wow.
It took a while. But this piece was done on site, I'd say about 90%, because it got so windy, I had to hold up the easel with one hand and paint with the other hand. And I think when you're painting by yourself, people feel more at ease to come up and ask you questions.
They do.
Yeah, so they came up, they asked me questions,
Oh,
they took
beautiful.
pictures, but eventually I had to bring it home. It was just getting too windy, and I was worried that it would tip over.
Lovely. They're really
Well,
lovely.
is that the time their whole pastel box went over?
Yeah, so I just showed them the picture.
That's
So
amazing.
I was telling them I was doing a piece, plein air, and the whole pastel box, before I started, tipped over because of the wind.
Oh. This is the result of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Sure.
That's sweet.
So this year, we converted the pastel that we have, the original pastel though behind Marie, into a print, and we do have it on sale here. We have it as print, just matted, or print as in a frame like this one. So, let's see, what else can I tell you? I did this one. This is another plein air piece that I did about a week ago. And I decided to go out. It was like 11:30, and lots of people there, but I was the only one doing plein air. And I started working, and you know, a couple people did come over. They liked the sky, they liked the trees. The one thing I was working on, trying to work on, was the water. So it wasn't coming very well. But then I realized I forgot to put the part in that holds up the bridge. That was really important to get that back in there, so I had to put that in there. So once I finally did that, it started working better, the water. And then as I was finishing up, I saw a spot of rain. And I was like, oh, I better put this away, because I knew there was going to be storms that day. And sure enough, I got everything together. I started walking halfway to the car, you know, from the bridge to the parking lot. It's a little bit of a distance. It poured. I was lucky I got everything, you know, together and covered and back to the car without it getting destroyed, so.
Wow.
The life of an artist.
Yeah. So, and then besides Concord, besides the bridge items, I do have like Concord in general. So if you're in the, was this the Keys parking lot?
Kai's Road.
Keys, Keys, whoops.
Spelled but like peas, but it's Kai's.
You
This
can
is
tell I'm not from
Massachusetts
Concord.
after all.
So if you're in the parking lot and you look up, like in the direction of Concord Academy, there's this one building that has this steeple-like
Nice.
top.
Nice.
So I've done a series of pastels, like 30-day challenges or watercolor challenges. So if you do this every day, you get a little bit better. by doing this challenge because you're always engaged in creating, and so this is my pastel series that I did of the bridge, the steeple.
Is this a pastel and this is watercolor?
Yep.
Oh, imagine that. Yes, it does. I've got pastels at home. Like, amazing.
And then, where's the other one? This is not Concord, but somewhere I have, this is just show you how different.
You've seen them, haven't you? No, I haven't.
This is Drombeg Stone Circle in Ireland. So this is also the series where I have a watercolor series, and then I did the same in pastel.
Where
So you
is
can
that
see.
in Ireland? Do you remember what part?
It's not Cork, but in that direction down
Oh,
that way, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
How
My
lovely.
father found it. He was over there for work. So he took us girls when we visited him one time over there to find it, and it's in this like field. You have to go down this like one lane. It's really 2 lanes, but it to us it would be 1 lane drive to get there. So.
And often a style, and then there's nothing on the other side. So you just,
See how you get the beautiful reds coming through with the pastels.
Yep.
And I really like the way you do your foliage. I have a lot of trouble with that. You're really good at it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've been working at the foliage. I've been taking classes for pastel, mostly pastel, a little watercolor, but mostly pastel. And during that time, I've done a lot of work on getting the trees because, you know, when you're first starting off, you make them look like school kids' trees, you know, very flat. You know, so yeah, I've been trying to do that and make them more full and dimensional. So
when you're used to working in watercolors, is the pastel more difficult then?
because I've been taking classes, this was easier.
Oh, I see.
And I've been doing it since 2015, so I've been taking classes.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn more about watercolor, so I took an online class. It was like take 3 classes. You watch these videos, and then at the end of the month you get together with the instructor, and he went over some of our stuff, made comments, you know, told us how we could fix our work, but it was a way to get back into watercolor. I had taken it as a class in college, but really hadn't done much with it, and watercolor can be very hard if you're not used to it, and I know other teachers who've come into the store would be like, oh, if you've never done watercolor, maybe do gouache first, maybe get used to the wetness and stuff, and then go to watercolor. But I just dove in, and I did this series, you know, of each day a photo, a picture, and the first one, it wasn't great. It was okay, but it wasn't great. But you could see over the month how it was getting better, and the images were taking shape, and the compositions were getting better, and you know, they looked much better than the first 2 days, you know, so that was good.
Wow.
Yeah.
You
Can
work
I ask
hard.
you,
Yeah.
do you have just a totally naive question?
Yeah.
When you're painting the picture and you're going to do the matting,
Yeah.
I mean, do you paint the picture the size that's going to fit a matting, or can you cut the mattings? I don't know.
Well, for these I had done a specific size, so I knew that they would fit into a mat.
Yes, that was the idea, yes.
Yeah, so a lot of artists might think of that first. You know, it might be different for oil painters, but for pastel artists or watercolorists, they might think first of, okay, how am I going to frame this? Am I going to frame it? Because a lot of pastel artists now don't put a mat on it, but they'll put it directly into a frame with a spacer. So that way the piece is not up against the glass, but a little bit away from it. And that will keep the glass clean, because if any pastel dust comes off it, it will just go down to the bottom. It won't stick to the glass.
So in other words, you're saying with pastels, it's better to put a mat around. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I put a mat around it just because I'm used to
What
it.
you're saying.
Yeah, it keeps it a little bit away from the paper, you know, like this is plastic right now, or glass. But some artists are doing a lot of, who are pastel artists, they won't put a mat around it. Instead, they'll put the glass near it, but there's a spacer right around the edge of the image, and it keeps it like 1/8 of an inch away from the glass.
Oh, I see. Yes.
So Cindy, will your things be available here through the week?
Through the week? Yes, yes.
So anyone could come down. You're here on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Yep.
Will you be here this coming Thursday?
Thursday, yes, I am
Yes.
here.
So anyone could come. and ask a question. And so we're going to sign off now.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in.